everyone. So we're going to be going over Bitcoin here real quick. As you can see, we are now at 108K for Bitcoin, and we're actually still respecting the trend line. So this is a major area right here because you cannot forget about this trend line. Like if we break this trend line, we are going to be going down to about 99K to 100K, right? If we break the trend line. If we do not break this trend line, that means that we're going to be going up again towards 118K this time. 119K is really that resistance. That is an important area that we have to watch out here for because, we're so far respecting this trend line and we're inside of the same channel that we've been in since the beginning of April. So it's very important that we do not break out of this channel and that we go up to this next level inside the channel. So that's a very important measure that you want to check out there. And then for Bitcoin, if you also look, we're still doing pretty good in the last 30 days, 15.9%. So technically, we're still up 57% in the last year. A lot of people are talking about how we're going to be crashing and all this, but we have not broken out of this channel. We are not crashing until we break out of this channel. Then that's when we're going to 99K to 100K. And then if we can't make it back up here, that's when we go down to 95K and start breaking these minor support levels and then break the major level going down to 74K. So we're not crashing until all this happens. All right. Now, remember, I'm not a financial advisor. None of this is financial advice. Let's keep going over some more things here. So we already looked at the daily chart here. And if you also look down here at the RSI, you can see the RSI was overbought here. So it kind of had to cool down. And that's why you've seen that pullback that we had. RSI had to cool down a little bit, right? And then you also see the MACD is now starting to print out some of these little tiny red candlesticks here. Well, they're not really candlesticks for the MACD, but you still see the red bars being created down here for the MACD, showing that we do have some bearish selling here. But look at how last time it was just a few red bars. So let's just zoom in on that. Look, just a few red bars here last time, right? This time we had a bigger red bar that just now got printed out, and it could increase a little bit more, but nonetheless, it's still there. And if you also think about it this way, we have actually been planning this for a little bit. You can see that the buying has slowed down a little bit and the selling has sped up. So you still have trend lines when you're dealing with the MACD. This is actually a pretty textbook play here, and I actually showed this on my previous videos, showing that it's going to slow down and switch to the selling side of things right as we're about to get to this resistance at our Fibonacci retracement. It's not just ever going to go straight up to 119K. We got to cool down a little bit. Once we cool off, we may have another breakout buying session to where everything just starts going crazy and Bitcoin just, goes up. Now, look at this. If you look at the top, yes, we are overbought on the MACD, but it could stay overbought for even longer. I also mentioned this before. See it starting to curve downwards a little bit, but then you can see it going right back up. So there's a possibility that this is not done yet. There is that possibility, but there's also a possibility that it could continue to break down. And I can kind of show you what that would look like here. Now, this is the 4-hour charts. Yes, the 1-day chart shows that we have some selling going on, but that it could also reverse to upside. And the 4-hour chart kind of confirms the possibility of a reversal to the upside here. Now, if this RSI continues to go down and then this line here tries to cross, but it can't and goes down with it, you'll see continued selling possibly. But what leads me to think that it won't. And look, anything can happen at this point, all right? I want you guys to remember that. But take a look at this. When you look over here at the MACD, this is a telling story here. This is telling you a story. Look at these red lines right here. Look at the red bars. Just look at how it's now reversing and it's looking like it's about to go to a buying here. It always does this. Whenever you see the red bars becoming a lighter shade of red like this on the MACD, that's showing you that it's about to reverse into a buying pattern. And it does it every time. You can also see it here, how the red bars start to show up, starts reversing to that buying pattern. And sometimes it's delayed. Like here, you can kind of see that the red bar started to show up, but then it was delayed a little bit, but it was just sideways movement. It wasn't really much of a drop, just some sideways movement here. And then eventually, boom, it breaks out. So that could be going on too. And remember, this is the 4-hour chart here. So to also take a look at this down here. Now, the MACD could cross. If this crosses, this is literally going to go right back up. So you definitely want to pay attention to that. And right now, the volume has been relatively low, and it's been more on the selling side. You can see that here, these volume bars. It's been more to the selling. So all it takes is a slight reversal of buying pressure to come in because all the selling is too strong, too heavy, and then boom, everything could change after that. And we should be seeing some more news for like the financial markets and everything. So we'll see that GDP growth rate, all that, May 29th. But yeah, we'll definitely be seeing within the next few days whether or not we're going to be breaking out of this channel, because as you can see, we're getting closer and closer to that trend line. So there is a huge possibility that it breaks down below that trend line. And let's kind of break it down to a smaller time frame now. Now a 30-minute chart, and see all these time frames tell you a different story. So that's why you have to look at them all. All right, now we're going over to the 30-minute chart. Boom. So looking at the 30-minute chart here kind of tells a little bit of a different story. The 30-minute chart is actually showing that we're now going into more buying pressure. So I like the way the 30-minute chart is looking right here. You can see those two green candlesticks here starting to print out right after these red ones. And you can see how it turns to a lightly shaded red. That always happens before a reversal. So we've seen the selling right from this, right? As the lightly green shaded ones start coming on, that shows that the selling is starting to come. And then when the full on red ones come, that is where the selling actually takes place. And then after the selling actually takes place, you start to see lightly red shaded ones, which means that now we're having that reversal to buying. And that's indicated by this. And now you can see the green bars. But once these green bars get exhausted, that will start to show the selling pressure will start to come in. So you might see something like this, where we go up to about 109K. We get rejected at this minor resistance area where we were rejected before here and also here. And then you could end up seeing something like this, where we start to curve downwards, right? And then you start to see red bars here on the MACD. And then you start to see that downward pressure to the 106K level on the trend line. But then we might bounce off that trend line like we've been doing for so long. And actually, we might respect that trend line and then just have another pump to the upside. So that's also a measure that you would want to pay attention to, because if we respect that trend line, then that means that we have more pressure to go. We have more buying pressure to go for the future. And yeah, it also on the MACD, if you look at it, we have sold off a lot, but it's also about to curve upwards. So look at this. You can see the MACD right here curving. Literally, it's curving right before our eyes. So it might just curve upwards, and it might switch to more heavy buying pressure. Right now, the volume is extremely low in this area. So all it takes is for a major buy for it to change everything, or a major sell, because there's not much going on. So that is one that we have to pay attention to. And then if you also look over here with the RSI, it does look like it wants to do a reversal, but you never know with these markets. That was the 30-minute chart. Now, boom, we're going to switch over to the 15-minute chart. So look at this. So for the 15-minute chart, it tells us a different story. See, every single one tells us a story. You see buying pressure leading upwards with the RSI. And you also see here on the MACD We are starting to print out a lightly shaded green candlestick here. We'll see within the coming day whether or not we're going to start printing more of those lightly shaded greens and then switch to the red candlesticks. But nonetheless, we could get rejected right here at this little minor resistance at 108.4K. But if we break out over that, then again, we get up here to 109.5K, like I mentioned before. And yeah, that's an important level. So those are really all of the levels that we want to watch out for our charts. So keep a close eye out for those. The 5 minute chart is super short, so I really don't care about showing this. This is more for day traders. So yeah, it doesn't really matter inside the grand scheme of things when you're looking at the 5 minute chart. But yeah, definitely watch out. And also the weekly chart. Look at this. So the weekly chart, it's telling you another story. Like the weekly chart saying, "Hey, we're just getting started." Like you see these green candlesticks just now starting to form up. Weekly chart might just be getting started, and you kind of see it curving upwards to the upside, and then the RSI looks like it just wants to start going crazy too, because it was overbought back in November, December, and then that's when we had that reversal. We started to have the selling off. That's when Trump started his trade wars, right? And then boom, we get down here. So when we get down here, let me switch back. Okay, so yeah, when we get down here, that's when we reverse from these red candlesticks to what? The lightly red shaded candlesticks, which indicates buying is coming in. And then we get all these green candlesticks. We haven't stopped with the green candlesticks on the weekly chart yet. The weekly chart tells us a whole different story. The weekly chart says we still have some strength to go to the upside. That's what the weekly chart is telling us. And then when you also go over here and look at the monthly chart is saying another story. Like, A, we're going into overbought territory. Haven't got there yet. Well, we could quite possibly be going there, but you want to be careful because it's also overbought already on the MACD. You can see here the lightly red shaded candlesticks and then one green candlestick. So then the monthly chart is showing you something else. The monthly chart is saying, hey, we have one more pump before we are finished, right? That's what the monthly one is saying. The monthly one is looking back here at 2021, and they're like, look, 2021 after it was done, it was done. There was nothing else to bring it back to life. And now for this one, you can see lightly red shaded candlesticks, and then boom, it starts to break out once we have the lightly red shaded candlesticks. And then now look, as that comes in, we start to see the green candlesticks. And boom, all these green candlesticks from the beginning of 2023 all the way up till now, till mid 2025. But now these green candlesticks, they started to get lightly shaded green, and you started seeing the downturn from 74K Bitcoin all the way down to 50K Bitcoin to 48K Bitcoin. Then that's when you start to see those green candlesticks coming back on the MACD, and you start seeing the pumping coming back in. And now we're in our current channel, and then you see the lightly green shaded candlesticks indicating the levels that we had for the beginning of Trump's trade war. And now you're seeing a green candlestick coming back in, a full green candlestick, which means buying one more is probably going to end up printing out, and then that's probably what we're going to end up getting, the massive sell, which everyone is calling the crash. Personally, I'm more leaning. All right, so I'm gonna tell you what I'm more leaning towards personally. Look, personally, I'm leaning more towards another breakout to about 119K, at the very most 130 to 135. I know I mentioned 150 possibly. That's at the very, very most, right? But I think 119K is what we're looking at, because that's the top of our channel here, and that's also where our Fibonacci retracement is. So you got to think about that as well. So 119K on average, at the most 130, 135. If we're just defying all odds, 150K. But according to what I'm seeing with candlesticks, it doesn't look like that, because they're all telling a different story, right? Okay, so I know you guys might say I'm contradicting myself, but no, I'm going through all of the time frames here. And when you look at the daily chart, kind of doesn't look good because we're getting, signals that those red candlesticks could start coming in. But there's also that possibility that instead of having these green candlesticks, we just have a random breakout and then you just see more green candlesticks instead of those red ones coming in, right? And then when you're looking at the 4-hour chart, you're like, well, this usually happens right before a reversal to the upside. When you see movement like this, and the RSI also kind of tells you the same thing. And then if you break it down even more to the 30-minute chart, we're already printing out green candlesticks here at the bottom on the MACD. So then it kind of makes you wonder, like, well, what about the 1 week? Well, the 1 week chart is printing out green candlesticks like it wants to keep going. And then if you also look at the monthly, it's got 1 candlesticks and possibly one more green one to go before it goes bearish. So that's what I'm kind of leaning more towards just by looking at the charts and looking at these different indicators. If I was just looking at the chart here instead of these two indicators and the volume, then I would probably be like everyone else and say, no, there's no way we're going. There's not enough strength. We didn't even tap the top of that trend line here. We struggled to try to get up here to tap it up here and couldn't quite do it. The volume started to slow down, and now we're breaking out. Now we're going to break down to 99. Can't break that. Break down to 88. That's what everyone wants to hear, and then eventually down to 74. That's what people want to see because people are like, no, there's no way it's going to keep going. Personally, I think it has one more leg up, personally. But it might not do that. It might not. So remember, I'm not a financial advisor. None of this financial advice. Do your own thing. It could quite possibly keep crashing and defy all the indicators. Like it could defy the MACD for the daily chart, for the weekly chart, for the monthly chart. It could defy the RSI as well. So definitely stay diligent there. But yeah, this is all I got for y'all today. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor. Again, and it's financial advice. Hit the like button and subscribe, all that good stuff. And as always, I'll be back with another video.